This is here the updated Reno Austral. It's an SUV that brings a lot of technological features to this very segment. For example, a rear axle steering in a compact SUV and much more details and what has changed here with Thomas Nautogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go. It's actually a sister model to the Nissan Qashqai, this Reno Austral, and it used to be the Renault Kadjar, but then they brought a new generation, changed the name to Austral, and this one here is now the recent facelift. And you can see here a changed front with this Renault logos, the tiny ones in the front, so to speak. So you can see it here, how they resemble. Pretty cool actually. And they also offer this matte paint. It's a matte grey paint. They have this grey paint in normal metallic and also in the matte design. It's called either schist grey or also dolomite grey, depending on the country you're actually in or the market. And then with the matte option that comes on top of it is a little bit more expensive, of course. And they also call it satin than this matte option, but pretty cool. There's also a new blue color, like a South Sea blue color that looks also really striking. Really love it both. Headlamps also with an update, now new LED lamps, and then in the mid-trim with adaptive function, and here this is the optional matrix LED that you also have more high beam functions than that some parts are being left out and you can leave the rest of the high beam on. This is also the Esprit Alpine trim. You can see it with the badge here. It's the top trim level. Techno would be the other high or mid trim level. And Evolution is the base trim level. And the Esprit Alpine also comes with 20-inch wheels. You can see them right here, the large ones. Of course, leaves less dampening from the tire. The Techno trim would come 19-inch and 18-inch would be the base wheel, which would bring a little bit more comfort. Speaking of comfort, the suspension has been upgraded. They use new dampers and also very interesting upgrades with this facelift. For example, the areas around the door sills have been reworked for better sound deadening. And they have more measures like less vibration from the engines. And also here and there some measures that you hear less road noise while driving. It's a very cool thing to do that with the facelift. And this feature here, 4Control, is an option when you have the full hybrid and the Techno or the Esprit Alpine trim. Then the rear wheels turn up to 5 degrees in the opposite direction than the front wheels, up to a threshold of 50 kilometers an hour, reducing the turning circle from 11.2 to 10.1 meters. So then it has a turning circle of a really, really small car. And above 50 kilometers an hour, it's 1 degree in a parallel direction. So, and here at this very length here, which is at 4 meters 53 now with the facelift, or 178 inches, hardly any other vehicle that size has this rear axle steering technology. Very unique indeed. Some rework here also for the rear, not that dramatic like you see in the front, but overall I feel it's a likable design. Now towards the interior with this typical Renault key card, then door closing sounds. Not bad, not good, nothing special, but this matte paint is really cool, like, good boy. Then inside of the doors, top part is, yeah, in the front, somewhat softened up. Here then in the Esprit Alpine trim level with Alcantara inserts. Here also a little bit softer for the elbow, hard pack in the lower part. And very important here, in the Esprit Alpine trim, we get dual glazing at the front windows here. That's actually pretty cool. Actually, even in the rear, let me just check. I can't imagine it. No, that's normal. But I mean, that's totally fine for this segment and for this price. But pretty cool to have that. And you also have this entry sill badge and also here the special floor mats with the blue contrast. And the steering wheel, flat bottom, has these Alcantara inserts here. That's also nice. And the rest of the steering wheel is also from animal-free material and it actually feels even better. So pretty cool from the material quality. Real button still at the steering wheel, for example, for the cruise control. Right side, then you can control something in the digital instruments. And it's all with this 12-inch on the left side. In the infotainment, there's two different sizes, so more to that. These are the seats. They have more bolstering at the sides, and also more side support in all trims. And this is the Esprit Alpine trim with the fabric on the inside, some leatherette on the outside, and on the top part here, once again, some Alcantara inserts. The Techno trim, for example, I filmed these seats for you as well. These have a different fabric on the inside of the seats. And although the seat ergonomics are the same, maybe the other fabric is even a little bit nicer than this fabric, but it's maybe also just matter of taste. Yeah, what do you think from your first impression. Then here with 189 6x2, here some headroom left and also a little bit more headroom here to the glass roof. The steering wheel column here, up and down, in and out. So motorcycle drivers also enjoy these roads here today. And you also have the gear selector here on top. Like in the Renault 5 or Renault 4, we see the same thing. And we also have electric seats here with memory function. And you can also save it to this camera here. There's a camera here in the A pillar. And then it's automatically recognizing who is using that vehicle and loads your position again. Welcome to this cockpit. And yeah, that thing that jumps to your eye is not necessarily infotainment, but here this middle console is an inductive charging pad. It's not cooled though, and this is actually where you switch the gears. Very interesting, like here. This is like reversed, and first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth. No, of course not. I'm just kidding. I was making all of that up.
Would be cool.
Yeah, but it would be quite pretty cool, like to have such, because it looks like a you know, super dimension shifting lever, something like that. It's an automatic gearbox here, and this is like to pull it forward or backward. It's interesting, you know, because the thought behind it is, yeah, you can leave it here for the cup holders, which are adaptive, and also two USB-C chargers, but you could also put it forward like this. Then you have here the cubby hole, and then you could rest your hand here and then control the climate unit with resting your hand here. All the possibilities, you can do it, you don't have to, but the cool thing is the climate unit, listen Audi, that's what Audi used to do. Nice clicking sounds with easy access and so on. This is how it's done. Yeah, and Audi used to do that, but doesn't do it anymore. Maybe and hopefully they will go back to this solution then here. In the base model, you would start with a 9-inch infotainment. Then as soon as you go mid-trim, here the Techno trim, or then include also in the high Esprit Alpine trim, then you go with a 12-inch infotainment here on the right. Then you have this unit from the horizontal and the vertical in combination. Soon more details of that. Here in this trim, also with the microfiber insert. In the Techno trim, this would be fabric, which also looks pretty cool. Ambient light integration in the dashboard is also somewhat softened up, and the glove box folds down smoothly and slowly, gives you some space as well, so that's nice. Middle console, these parts are hard, so if these would be a little bit softer, that would be nice actually. Then you have a split opening here for, yeah, the armrest also is soft enough, I would say. Split armrest, but then there's no cover here from the inside, so when you look at that one in detail, for example. But overall, it gives you a good impression. This cabin also here, for example, the frameless back mirror. So there are a lot of nice details. Here, for example, also you have storage for sunglasses, and even thinking about kids, you have this special kids mirror. Some parents might know that from their cars, that you can actually see here what the kids are doing, and then here for the real back mirror. Yeah. Have you used it and why? Tell me in the comments. And the cockpit perspective, here once again with the real buttons at the steering wheel, here for the cruise control and so on. Multi-sense button to change the driving modes. We will also talk about these while driving, of course. And you can also change the layout of these instruments. So got some possibilities there. It takes a while, these changes though. And then we have the head-up display right there. There's a test engineer from Cupra we met here today also, so the competition is also watching. Then we have the main infotainment unit. It's not flickering on rear eye, just on camera sometimes, with Google Maps built in. So that's good to have the native support. Again, not flickering for the rear eye. And it's actually quick enough, let's say it that way. Interesting that here you can even change the rear axle steering intensity. So that's a pretty cool thing. Yeah, so overall it does job. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto is also possible. Also important here, left next to the steering wheel, press once and confirm, and then you are in the My Safety Perso mode, and you can turn on all assistance systems or deactivate the systems like the speed beeping like you want. And Leah can also show you with her beautiful smile how the multi-sense button here at the steering wheel changes the color here also on the right side at the dashboard here in this ambient lighting stripe. Different colors, 2 different driving modes, and you can also individualize that. And then here, as for the visors or the sun blind in the top, There's a light connected with opening this one. There we go. The rest is, I would say, rather basic.
No.
Cannot make it longer than in this case. Rear seats here, hard plastic on top part. Here's a nice Alcantara insert here in the Esprit Alpine, then hardpack here in the lower part again. Then the seats, they actually have here a nice function. So you can slide them forward or backward again. Isofix at the outside each, also with these caps. And then you can also adjust the angle here a little bit, 1/3, 2/3 here. It's not too much, but a little bit like this, or then all the way back. So that is possible. Here the cup holes are not adaptive though. There we go, middle console here with 2 USB-C chargers now. And let's check out what a space we actually do have here. And of course, yeah, 2/3 you can also put way forward, therefore more trunk of course, or like this. And here, yeah, 1.89 m, 6'2". To the side, not too much space when you have the panoramic roof here. And then to the glass roof, it's a little bit more. It's an option, like 1,000 euros. You just have this shade here. So I can also show it to you because that's a good perspective actually. So you can close this shade here when it's really hot, but it's still getting hot inside here. So I would actually advise rather against it to keep it a little bit cooler in the vehicle, and you cannot open it anyways. Yeah, and then the leg room, when it's all the way back in, when I'm driving, this is here, and I mean, considering the length of the car, in this here, using that recess here is even more knee room. So also overall a good use of space. Now to the trunk or the boot, 530 liters here in the hybrid, 555 in the mild hybrid, a little bit more. Here vertical trolley fits in even under the cover. There's 1.40 meters in the width, and here the length is about 33 inches or 85 centimeters. Then this cover here, you can also take it out completely, have some space underneath. I guess there would also be some options for spare tires as well. And then you can also, so this is the way, here you can also fold the seats from here. It's a little bit weird on mechanism, gotta say, though. I'm not sure why they did it that way, not the other way around. This is being held by the seat, but I hate that when it happens. There we go. So, and then you see the total length to the seat as I'm driving here is about 64 inches or 1.63 meters. And this top cover here, you can easily take it out that way. There we go. And then you can see this is then the full spec, so to speak. Last but not least, the height, always important. And then we are here. This is about 27 inches or 73 centimeters. And when you use this moving seat bench, here you can gain even more trunk length. Warning, however, I'm not sure if you see that here. There's something sticking out from the fabric here from this cover. So I can only recommend you to wear gloves or just put it like this. You should not touch this with bare hands, because I just did, obviously you've seen it, and now I have a couple of little splinters in my fingers actually from something that is sticking out here. So this should really not be the case. Yeah, that's definitely something you have to be aware of. Under the hood we have here, 2 gas struts here, and also nice deadening here. This is the 1.2 liter 3-cylinder hybrid with 200 horsepower, 8.4 seconds in the acceleration, front wheel drive. And yeah, that's, I feel a little bit undersized for this size of the vehicle. The alternative would be a slower engine to that. Instead of 8.4 seconds, you're at 9.7 seconds in the acceleration then. And that one is a 1.3 liter 4-cylinder mild hybrid engine. So higher displacement a little bit, 1 more cylinder, but at the same time slower, because there you don't have the help from electric motor. It's just like mild hybrid with a CVT. So that's why most customers meanwhile go with this hybrid option here. You can have electric driving moments in the city. The engine always decides if it's driving electric, if it's driving on the petrol, or if it's combining both actually together with this very special automatic gearbox. Starting to drive the Reno Austral. And we feel it here directly. That's why we're starting with it. The rear axle steering, which is equipped here, this 1,500 euros option for the Esprit Alpine. You can also get it in the Techno trim. But it's really interesting because it's actually going 5 degrees. So you can see it like when you look to the side mirror, then you can see the rear wheels turning. Of course, you should not really do that, you know, in this case. Here also easy to deactivate this speed limit warning chime. Just twice here, as I showed to you earlier, pressing the button, and that's it, and it's deactivated. So a very practical thing to do. And yeah, the rear axle steering thing, it kind of feels unnatural in a way, you know, but it's also funny because there's hardly any other vehicle with that short wheelbase at that short length still already offering the rear axle steering. That's pretty amazing, and it's a minimum turning circle. And another thing here with the hybrid 200 horsepower full hybrid, the built-in hybrid, here when we're going downhill, we have recuperation, or I can also here change the recuperation level. So here when I just leave my foot off the throttle, hard recuperation now is so hard recuperation, you can compare it actually like with a full electric vehicle. That's very interesting. We also hardly have that with inbuilt hybrids, that the recuperation is so strong. But of course you can also set it a little bit lower, and then it's also doing the recuperation when you hit the brake pedal. So both is actually possible. Yeah, and these things make it a really unique ride. I mean, yeah, it's still true that it's not that powerful. For example, also when you're going uphill or so, it is a small engine, 1.2 liters, 3-cylinder engine, not so much power. Yes, you also have the help from the electric motor, or motors, 2 electric motors in this case then. One is ISG, one really helping. And the drivetrain is constantly switching what it does, actually. That's also interesting. We soon also go to the motorway and give you some acceleration. So what do I mean by the drivetrain or the car constantly switching? So sometimes we're driving electric, sometimes we're driving with a petrol engine, and sometimes we're driving with both. So especially when you like have hard acceleration and so on, and the car is really constantly assessing what is the right choice for which situation. And yeah, the best is when you as a customer, you know, just don't care about it and just do your thing, basically. 20-inch wheels here on this Esprit Alpine trim. Yeah, I mean, you do feel that, especially when you're going over some bumps and so on. It looks amazing, of course, with 20-inch wheels, and it gives you a sportier ride. But at the same time, the ride also gets somewhat rough. Gotta admit that. So in the Techno trim, for example, you can go with the 19-inch wheels, only optional 20-inch, or the base trim Evolution would start with 18-inch wheels. And for the comfort, that's actually better. However, they also reworked the whole suspension. You get completely new dampers in there, also here with the bumps and so on. So I feel that the suspension is actually doing a good job. It's just that you have like this, you know, little tire space when you have the big wheels, and you do feel that. But overall, I think they found a nice suspension setup. It's usually with Renault that they don't go in that super sporty direction. And I also read that from your comments that not everyone wants like a tough, sporty, stiff ride. Sometimes for everyday driving is actually better when the suspension is a little bit more comfortable, and that's what we see here. So for example, here these like these big bumps, that's really like extreme ones here at the moment. But these are not so bad because this is more going to the suspension, and with the wheels that you feel something that is more when you have like a very short pothole or something like that, then you feel that one more because of the large wheels. The steering is really light in the trim. I also don't feel that it would make much difference which mode you are actually in. So that doesn't change much. It rather changed the throttle input, for example. But it doesn't have like a big dead zone area. You just need a little bit more steering way, but it's not imprecise or unprecise or something like that. So overall, it's okay. To me, it could deliver a little bit more feedback. Is it maybe a little bit more feedback in the sport mode? Let me just try again. Back to the comfort mode. Oh, kitty cat. Way in front of us there. Not sure if you've seen it on camera. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit. Yeah, the sport mode has some more steering feedback. But still a light setting, and that's matter of preference as well, because for example, Leah always tells me that she likes the lighter steering setting, and I always prefer more like old school style, because yeah, maybe also because I still learned driving cars with no steering support. You know, that's then maybe the thing. And now some countryside roads. Overall, I feel that the driving feeling is likable. It's compact. It's definitely more elaborate if you compare it to the Renault Symbios, which we have recently driven. But it's not large SUV yet. And the really unique thing is you have more comfortable suspension setup, then again the large wheels, and that rear axle steering. And it's actually active in that opposite direction up to the threshold of 50 kilometers an hour. So below 50 kilometers an hour, you have 5 degrees maximum that the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction. When you're driving more than 50 kilometers an hour, it goes maximum 1 degrees in the parallel direction. And you also feel that. But here, for example, here at 40, so I still feel when I go in like some slalom here now, left and right, then you feel that the rear comes a little bit around, you know, but it kind of feels different because like 90% of all other vehicles with rear axle steering are like at least 50 centimeters longer, you know, and then it kind of feels different. But this is, by that, a turning circle machine at 10.1 meters in the turning circle. That's a turning circle of a tiny car usually, you know, so that's a really respectable thing. And at the same time, even though we drive it here fully spec'd, it will still be significantly cheaper than the Volkswagen Tiguan, you know. So that's actually the charm with this vehicle. And here in the hybrid, I mean, the situations we had so far, like stop and go, back and forth, driving in a city, is actually quite good because you don't need so much power from it. At the same time, you can profit from these hybrid advantages, also the consumption advantages and so on. We'll give you a fuel consumption update and later on when we have everything topographic, equalized and so on. And then you can also use these EV moments here. For example, it says EV at the moment, drives then all silent, and that's actually a good thing then. And more customers go for this hybrid version, like for the global sales, about 80% I heard, in Germany about 50%, for example. Yes, it's more expensive, but then it will also better in the fuel economy and also in that acceleration with 8.4 versus 9.7 seconds. So because all of the Renault engines are usually somewhat sluggish, gotta admit that, it's then usually the better pick to pick the one that has most power, so to speak. And let's do some motorway, sport mode, acceleration 70 to 100, let's go. Plop, that's it. Yeah, this was more the petrol engine driven acceleration, is fine. Now it feels like a little bit stressed, so to speak. Let's go back to the comfort mode. And I've done several accelerations already, also like when the camera was not recording or when I was recording our German language format. And sometimes, I mean, especially when it keeps the petrol mode, then it's rather smooth, let's say. But when it's switching the modes while accelerating, sometimes strange things happen. So I had another acceleration where there was first the electric push, then the engine was kind of like, it felt like it was dying on you, and then there was the petrol push. And that felt rather strange, honestly. Another strange thing I also had in the German driving part, when I went on the motorway, I was driving less than 50 kilometers an hour. The rear axle steering was active, and in the corner I accelerated like from 48 to 53. And when I was in the corner, like I reached this threshold of the rear axle steering, and then it basically shut off while being in the corner. And that kind of like unsettled the car a little bit. Not that it would be dangerous or something, but it's of course strange. Like when you go into a corner, the rear axle steering is active, and suddenly in the corner it shuts off and it's not active anymore. It does like a movement of the car from the rear axle. And that was feeling kind of weird. I have never experienced that with a rear axle steered car. Maybe because usually the thresholds are higher, and then maybe the effect is not that strong because probably at these higher speeds also the angle of the rear wheels is not that wide. You know what I mean? That's probably the thing. Here, lane changes at 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. Feels good. Now the motorway is also pretty even. The suspension I felt is actually nice and also quite comfortable, but again, 20-inch wheels make you lose a little bit of comfort as for that. But it feels good to control. It's also fun in driving, definitely. I'm not sure what the car was. Was it about the speed limit? Maybe. I don't know. But I did deactivate the other stuff though. So it's fun to drive, definitely. And what's also remarkable, since I showed you earlier, we have the dual glazed windows here. And that makes it a silent ride here at 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. Feels really nice, you know, nice and silent. We can already get off here, for example. I can show you more in this roundabout. So it's a nice and silent ride, at least at these speeds here. Because if you would drive in Germany, for example, we could also realize higher motorway speeds and so on. But that's what we have here today in Spain, at least. And this is a cool thing, you know. I mean, recently we saw the BMW 5 Series without dual glazed windows at almost double the price here. Why is that? Greetings to Munich, to the headquarters. You should do that. Yeah. I also already gave them the feedback, of course, but I mean, when the Renault here with that 50,000 euros in the top trim can do the dual glazed windows, why is it not possible for BMW to do it in the 5 Series? You know, yeah, I really don't understand that. So this is a very interesting vehicle. And on the one hand, you say, just yet another compact SUV. But then on the other side, this one has so many unique features, like the rear axle steering in that segment, dual glazed windows. So Renault is not known to be a premium brand, but they really bring a lot of premium features to that car here. I think I would prefer the fabric from the Techno trim, the fabric here. I mean, it's kind of hot today, and also the fixed panoramic roof makes it also hot. We also have the AC usually not turned up that high, because then it would be like too loud for you to hear as well. But I think the other fabric is a little bit more cozy, like more living room-ish. Then yet again here the Alcantara inserts on the dashboard and also at the steering wheel. That is a nice thing in the Esprit Alpine trim, definitely. Maybe I can show you here, because that's the key thing of the rear axle steering here. When I just do like a U-turn here. Wait for it. Now I turn in fully. That's pretty cool.
It's nice, yeah.
I can really see it in the side mirror, and look at that when I just, that really feels like you would be driving like a small city car or something like that. That's pretty cool. And consumption for today with the inbuilt hybrid 200 horsepower at 6 liters on 100 kilometers, 39 mpg US, 47 mpg UK. And that was a mix of some city driving, as you saw on the driving part, but also some motorway, maximum 120 kilometers an hour. So good conditions, especially here for this hybrid. But we also went up the hill, but then down again. In this case here, with topographic changes, the hybrid can of course gain back a lot of energy, can use the EV mode, and that is then a good use case for this hybrid model. And you maybe ask yourself, where is the Tiguan better? That is a little bit more expensive, soon more to that, to the prices. But the Tiguan especially I found is better in the suspension, especially with this new DCC Pro. As like in the comfort, but also in the sportiness and agility. That's where the Tiguan is better, but we also point out some things which are pretty cool here with the Austral. As for the prices, starts 35,000 euros with the entry engine, then around 39,000 euros if you go for the full hybrid here. And then if you spec it full, like Esprit Alpine trim, then the panoramic roof, rear axle steering, you can even get this one here above 50,000 euros. But then you really have a lot of stuff in there. I mean, rear axle steering in this segment here is absolutely unique. And then if you compare like a VW Tiguan, we had the Tiguan as test vehicles that were twice more than 70,000 euros. So you will still pay less for this Renault than here. It's not the most powerful engine. That's definitely on the downside. On the pro side, it's definitely that you get a lot of very interesting features like the rear axle steering, but also some nice details on the interior, for example. Here, these matte colors, very beautiful colors indeed, large wheels. So on the visual side, everything is right there. And it also drives quite well. I think really like the rather underpowered engines, that's the thing you gotta swallow. But if you have a lot of city share, for example, in your driving profile, then the hybrid will still do a good job. What do you think about here, the Reno Austral? Tell me in the comments and directly check out the competitors.